Hi guys, so when it does come to raising chickens like I do right here on my 12,000 capacity farm, the feed cost is like the biggest cost by far when it does come to, the farm. For me, for example, my cost usually varies between 70 and 85% depending on the prevailing cost of the feed. So it's such a huge percentage. Now, a lot of times people will inbox me and they'll ask me that, hey, Dr. Daniel, you have a lot of like organic stuff. You have like vegetables, vegetation, things like that. Actually, I'm growing some alfalfa. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know what alfalfa is. I'll just pick off a leaf from a plant right here, okay? So this is alfalfa. It's actually a vegetable, a very beautiful vegetable, and I'm growing it for my goats. And it's very proteinous. I would imagine that if I gave it to the chickens, they would certainly eat it. Yeah, that's number one. But number two, in addition to that, I have a lot of like amaranthus. We call it dodo in my country over here. Most of us call it dodo. And it's such a beautiful proteinous plant. And then a lot of times you'll find people using like aloe vera to put inside the water of the birds in order to, provide healing properties and all that kind of stuff. And so people are like, why don't you use this stuff? I mean, you give a few organic plants to your birds, that would certainly make them organic. Well, that's quite hilarious. Just to clarify, feeding your chickens with a few organic stuff doesn't make them organic. I see a lot of people lying to people because they supplement their birds with a few vegetables, a few leafy things from the outside, and they say that makes the birds organic. That's a lie completely. For a bird to be organic, it must not only feed on organic stuff, but it must also not take in any vaccines, any medicines, anything like that. All the feed must be organic. So a few organic things won't make your birds organic. But anyway, the main thing is that why don't I subsidize my feeding cost using, a lot of the vegetation that I do have on the farm? And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing that with you guys because I'm a businessman, and if I really needed to supplement the feeding for the birds using the vegetation around, I would certainly do it, but it doesn't make sense. I'm going to explain to you how it doesn't make sense at all. Now first, I want you to know that I'm not talking from a point of ignorance. I've actually tried this before. It's not like, I'm just some random guy who doesn't know what they're saying. No, I've actually tried this before and it just hasn't worked. Earlier on, when I just started farming, I was very serious about trying to reduce the feed cost for me, yeah? And when it does come to like feeding chickens, in terms of price per kilo for the ingredients, the proteins are usually like the highest cost because the proteins can either be gotten from like soya bean, which is usually like the cheapest, yeah, but then you can also use animal protein. Now plant protein like soya bean is the cheapest, but there's also animal protein, which actually a lot of times provides like even better quality protein, but then it's also more expensive. While you can use like bone meal, you can actually use actual meat like cattle meat or things like that. That would be too expensive. You can use like fish meal. So all those other alternatives can actually work. In terms of the plant sources, we usually have soya meal, which is what I use currently, and sunflower cake, which is also what I use, but you also have options like cotton. Some people use groundnut paste, same, and all those kinds of things. All those can work. It really depends on, the cost of the raw material that you can use to provide the animals. Now, when it does come to using vegetables or supplementing with vegetables, they're actually quite a good alternative. Yeah, they can be a good alternative because they have quite an amount of protein, just to be clear and honest, yeah? But then on the scale that I am working at, it's not practical. It's not practical because I've tried it. In the past, like I've said, when I was trying to bring my costs down, I tried out two different sources of protein. One of them was animal, the other one was a plant. I start with the animal one. The animal one at that time was black soldier fly larvae. So I went to this person who had been raising black soldier flies, and I tried to get information and things like that, tried to learn as much as possible. And then I got some black soldier flies, I brought them to the farm and tried, to utilize them, to grow on the farm. What I found out is that it is so difficult to reproduce the black soldier flies. So like it's impossible because a lot of people also say that poultry farming, just like I do it, is very difficult. So it's not, impossible. If you can focus and pay attention to it, it's actually possible. But the problem is that it requires a lot of attention. It's very technical and it takes a lot of effort for you to get anything sensible. I remember at that time I was using a few love cages. Love cages are like the places where the larvae or the black soldier flies were replicated from and things like that. And I remember after the whole cycle and me, giving them my waste and everything, I think I got like 1 kilogram like this of the black soldier fly larvae. Can you imagine? I think if I did well, I probably got like 2 kilos. Now, at that time, my birds were probably consuming probably just shy of 100 kilos of feed a day, just shy of 100 kilos. And if I was doing that, that means I probably needed like maybe 20, 30 kilos of protein. That's 20 kilos of black soldier fly larvae a day. And I produced 2 kilos after a period of like 3 weeks, something like that. When was it ever going to reach the point where I can produce it? So I just knew that that's not a viable option. I left it. Another one was fodder. Fodder, that time I was trying to use barley to produce fodder. But I went through the same technical problem, yeah? Having to, grow enough barley fodder that you can have enough of it to feed the chickens actually requires such a huge project. I mean, it requires a lot of focus, attention. People have to be there to water it. If you can't water it, then you need like a sprinkling mechanism, which requires electricity. That would be easy, but then you need a lot of space and to be able to grow it to such a big amount that, you can feed the birds again, producing 20 kilograms of barley every day. In that case, and for barley it would certainly have been more because barley has a lot of moisture, so you have to wilt it and things like that. So if you're growing 20 kilos, by the time you wilt it, it has probably come down to 8 or something like that. So it just made it very, very difficult. So it became impractical. So then when it does come to the leafy vegetation here, that we are utilizing here, I've seen a lot of people talk about it and sometimes it works. And there are circumstances where I might recommend that someone can use it, but in most circumstances, my recommendation is that someone doesn't use it. Meanwhile, I don't know if you guys can see, we have people, yeah, you can see them in the background, yeah, people in some dark green uniform just like me. They are weeding our alfalfa. This alfalfa we're going to be giving to the goats, yeah? So they are weeding it. I mean, some of it really grew up nicely. You can see this area, it is dark green and beautiful. And then look at this. This is yellow and what? And I think it was because of the distribution of the manure, yeah? So initially, the guys brought manure and they poured in the area, and I think they poured it in patches, yeah? So even if you zoom in, for example, this area has been weeded properly, you can see this dark, nice green area, and then just after that, you see that, yellowish, funny-looking area, yeah? And it's just because of the manure and things like that. It wasn't equally distributed, yeah? So the next time we get manure out of our chicken houses right there, we're going to have to, distribute it a little bit more inside here so that as the alfalfa is sprouting, once we make our very first cutting, the next one comes out and looks much better, yeah? But again, you can see the guys right there, they're weeding. Yeah, we have about 4 guys. So I've brought in 4 staff. Not all of them are going to be working in the garden and things like that. Some of them are going to be working in our new chicken house that you guys are seeing right there. So we have a new chicken house that they're building. And it's just about to get done. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of work happening right now on the farm. So the main reason as to why I can't utilize those things is number one, biosecurity. So if someone is going to be, getting aloe vera, because things like aloe vera would be harmless, because aloe vera, I'm not going to say provides any nutritive advantages to the birds, but it can provide medicinal protection and things like that for the birds, yeah? Because, I mean, it has medicinal properties. We all do know that, even for human beings. So then, why don't I utilize it? Why don't I give it to the birds? Because the risk is so high. Yeah, so I have to weigh the risk. People say that it provides medicinal properties and prevents diseases for the birds. But then I have to weigh the risk. What does weighing the risk mean? Weighing the risk means I have to compare it to the risk of introducing diseases from the outside, because the aloe vera is very probably going to be exposed to some form of, I'm sorry, I'm really looking at I'm looking at our alfalfa here and just making sure that it's not being attacked by insects. It looks like a particular area has been attacked by insects. So it might need to be sprayed. Yeah, I'm going to make inquiries and find out whether it actually needs to be sprayed. For now, it looks good, but well, yeah, just making sure that it's not going to be messed, yeah, whether we need to spray it or not, yeah. So again, picking the aloe vera from the outside and putting it inside the chicken house might mean introduction of diseases, because being on the outside means that it's in contact with local chickens. And now for me, my area here is fenced, so I don't have local chickens around, but birds of the air, you're hearing birds. Can you hear birds? Yeah, so we have trees around and things like that, and the birds could come, they'll come down trying to pick stuff from the ground. They get in contact with the aloe vera or the alfalfa or the blackjack or the amaranthus, whatsoever you want to feed your chickens on. They get into contact with it, and just like that, you introduce disease into the farm, yeah? And for me, for example, having invested, I don't know how much money, yeah? Because for 12,000 birds that I do have, imagine how much money you would require if I cull that flock. How much money I would require to feed 12,000 birds every month up to production. It's a lot of money, guys. It's a lot of money. So I don't want to risk that thing of introducing a disease just to give the birds aloe vera because I'm thinking about a bit of medicinal properties. No. I mean, I would rather deal with the disease when it comes. I give it proper antibiotics and things like that. And it's very unlikely to come because I'm already carrying out, you know, the proper things to ensure that we don't introduce this disease on the farm. Yeah, that's factor number one. Factor number two is what nutritive properties really are you getting from the vegetation? Yeah, what nutritive properties? Because you have to consider the fact that it's a commercial farm. Yeah, for me, my layer farm, for example, right here is a commercial layer farm. And the way I make money is through consistency in terms of egg production. So if, let's say, we expect the birds to be at 95% in terms of egg production, I want the birds to give me eggs at 95% production every day. Every day. And for the birds to give you that, they need a bit of consistency. Consistency in terms of the nutrition that you're providing for the birds. So if you're providing for the birds feeds that have, let's say we are doing 17% in terms of crude protein. So then you need to make sure that it is 17% crude protein each and every day. And that's going to give you the consistency of 95% laying. Now the problem with using this feeding is that today you're going to get amaranthus, because tomorrow you don't have enough amaranthus, you'll have less. Then the next day you will have a bit of blackjack. Then tomorrow you'll have a bit more of it and things like that. And what ends up happening is that amaranthus or whatever vegetation it is that you're giving to the birds actually has a varying protein percentage. That's number one. But number two, it fills the birds up differently, i.e. in terms of bulk. And what that means is that today they'll probably eat a bit less of the commercial feed that you're giving them, and tomorrow a bit more, the other day a bit less, the other day a bit more. And that takes away the consistency in terms of the nutritive value that you're providing for the birds. And what's going to end up happening? Today your production will be 90%, tomorrow 94, tomorrow 95, the next day 89, the next. It just doesn't make sense. And then they're going to lack that consistency. Their body is going to lack that consistency, and we're just going to end up losing. So the production ability and all those things just goes away, yeah, because of that consistent changing in terms of the nutrients that you're giving to the birds. So that is why, again, I say that I don't think it's a great idea for you to keep, giving birds all these supplements from the outside, especially, these so-called organic foods. I mean, if someone has probably a few broilers and they're keeping them on a system where they supplement with vegetation or things from the outside, it's okay, yeah? If you're probably keeping like 200, 100 broilers, something like that, it's probably okay because the risk is probably lower. Again, I wouldn't say the risk is lower because if someone is going to start with 200 broilers, it's probably all the money that they have. They're probably saved up their $200, $300 whatsoever, and they have invested all that money into the farm. And again, I find that it's too risky. Yeah, it's too risky. Again, there are people who do it and nothing ever goes wrong. But for me, who is a commercial farmer, for me who is thinking about the money and things like that, I feel like it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. Yeah, you're going to be doing it for money, do it commercially and things like that. If you want to do it on like another scale and things like that, then vaccinate your birds and then mix the feed. But then that only makes sense if you're going to do it in smaller numbers. If you reach the biggest numbers, 1,000, 2,000 birds, I honestly don't feel like it's worth the risk. Again, it's not my place to judge and decide for you whether you need to go ahead and do it. I'm telling you that I wouldn't do it because I feel like it's certainly not worth the risk for me. But in the end, I've just given you my points of judgment, and it's all up to you to, to decide and see if it makes sense for you or not. Yeah? So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. On this channel, I share everything to do with farming. Yeah, poultry farming, goat farming mainly. So just stick around and catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.